أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه السلام. May Allah increase our reward and your reward on account of the commemoration that we had for the tragedy of Karbala. I'd like to speak about a very practical aspect of life today, which I think will be important for some of us. But before I do that, let me first tell you about an uncle. Whenever he sees me at the mosque, he comes and says salam to me. And whatever conversation we have, after the conversation, he makes a dua for me. And he always says to me, may Allah give you long life and may He give you good health. And I always say to him, uncle, don't make such duas for me. And he says, why do you say that? And I say to him, this dua that you make, Imam Sajad makes this dua in a different way in the dua of Makarim al-Akhlaq. If you make it that way for me, it will be better. Imam Sajad in the dua of Makarim al-Akhlaq, he says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَعَمِّرْنِي مَا كَانَ عُمْرِي بِذْلَةً فِي طَاعَتِكَ. O Allah, give me life for as long as my life is in your obedience. فَإِذَا كَانَ عُمْرِي مَرْتَعًا لِلشَّيْطَانِ فَاقْبِضْنِي إِلَيْكَ. But if it ever happens that my life becomes a breeding ground for shaitan, then take me back to you. Before you're angry with me, and before your punishment comes down upon me. So I tell the uncle, please make dua that Allah gives me long life and good health in His service. The next time I meet him, again he says, may Allah give you long life, and may Allah give you health. And I have to say to him, uncle, please add the other part to it as well. In any case, when you look at this particular segment of the dua, you come to realize how precious is life and how precious is time. The Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they teach us life is valuable if life has a purpose, if life is in the service of God. And the very same period of time is not as valuable if it doesn't have a purpose, if it's not in the service of God. Ahsan, jazakumullah. Which you notice is a very different message from the message that we receive from our society. If you watch the messages being put out there, if you look at the advertisements being put out there, life is now made synonymous with play and sport. Somebody was telling me today that one of the large companies, their logo or their motto now is that life is sport. Life should be fun. Whatever you're doing should be fun. You must have heard a lot of people talking these days and saying that, look, if your work is not fun and you don't enjoy doing your work, then change your work. Because you've got to enjoy, right? And you find that the message of Islam is a very different message. Life has to have a purpose. Life has to have a reason. Okay? And therefore you find, taking this ideology that we're getting from our society, many of us are now engaging in activities that we don't normally used to engage in, that our parents did not used to engage in. And a lot of these activities, what they're doing is they're wasting our time. This precious time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. You know, whoever thought that binge watching would be a thing, now binge watching is a thing, right? Whoever thought that going from one YouTube message to another YouTube clip would be a thing. Nowadays, even elders come and complain to me and say that we can't get off YouTube. Because when I'm done watching one YouTube clip, another one comes up for me. Last night when I was giving a lecture at the Azahra Center, right after the lecture, even before the program came to an end, an uncle pulls me aside. He says, I want to talk to you. So I said, you know what, we need to go outside, because Yasin is still going on. So we went outside, and he says, I want to tell you something. That we were traveling once from Najaf to Karbala, going for ziyarah. And we were in a bus, and there was an elderly person sitting there on his phone. So I said, MashaAllah, this uncle is reciting dua, going to Karbala. Maybe I should join him as well. So I went and I sat down next to him, and I saw that it wasn't dua that he was reciting, he was playing a game. And he said, going from Najaf to Karbala, you're playing a game? But we got all of these activities now on which we waste a lot of time. Right? And one of them that I want to talk about tonight is gaming and playing a lot of video games. Now I know that for a lot of you, when I say that tonight I want to talk about video games, the first reaction that comes to your mind is that he's going to talk to us how bad video games are, and then he's going to end with a fatwa that they are haram. And I know if I even gave you a fatwa that it is haram, some of you would last 2 days tops. 48 hours, and then you start thinking to yourself, wait a minute, that sheikh didn't say it was haram. And that sheikh wears an amama, and this guy doesn't wear an amama. So you know what, I'll go with that one. So instead of telling you how bad it is, or instead of telling you, you can't, what I want to share with you today are some guidelines that you should use when you are gaming. And I want to share with you 4 guidelines. And all of these guidelines come to us from the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, in particular some of the ahadith of Imam Sajad. Because today we're commemorating the Shahada of the 4th Imam. And these guidelines that I'm going to share with you is not only something that you can use when you are playing video games. I think you can use it in many areas of your life. Anytime you develop a compulsive behavior, anytime you develop an addiction, then try to apply these guidelines over there. The first guideline is that we need to value our time. And we need to take our time and think of it to be very precious. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Because the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam teach us that nothing is more precious than your time. Okay? In fact, in one of the ahadith we are told that you should be more precautious when it comes to spending your life and spending your time than you are when it comes to spending your dirham and your dinar. Because your time is even more valuable than your money. And in particular, I'm telling you, my young brothers and sisters, that your time is even more precious. Because your time is the time of youthfulness. Your time is the time of health. Your time is the time when you've got a lot of free time. Use it very carefully. I don't think that for a Muslim who wants to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that a person should be spending more than 30 to 45 minutes playing a video game every day. More than that, we're wasting our time. And we have to keep track of how much time we're spending every day. Okay? A lot of the time, we spend a lot of time because we're not keeping track of it. And this is how it happens for many of us. That you come back from school, you come back from a place, and you say to yourself, I'm only going to spend 10 to 15 minutes. And when the 15 minutes comes to an end, you say to yourself, you know what, one more game. 2 more minutes isn't going to hurt anybody. I failed to survive on the island, on this one, I'll do better on the next one. Right? And it goes to the next game, and the next game, and the next game, and before you know it, 15 minutes has turned into 2 hours. If it's a weekend, many hours. Many hours. I tell you, every moment that is wasted is a moment of regret. In one of the ahadith, the Prophet of Allah, Hadrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, if we can request the brothers to move as much forward as possible, there is a lot of space over here. And even the brothers who are behind, if you can now move a little bit forward, please, at least by 2 to 3 feet. Ahsan, jazakumullah khairah. The Prophet of Allah says in a beautiful hadith, he says that when a person enters Jannah, he's not going to regret and miss anything from the life of this world. What could you miss in Jannah from the life of this world? He says, except for one thing. One thing, even a person who's entered Jannah will look back and say, I wish I had done that differently. He says, those are the moments in your life that were spent in other than the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those moments of life which were spent for other than God, other than serving God, other than doing something that gets us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One, be careful of how much time you spend on it. Right? What we also have to appreciate is not all time of the day is the same. The city life has taken from us our appreciation for nature, our appreciation for time, our appreciation for season. Our bodies are no longer in harmony with nature. Yeah. You find that we no longer understand the importance of day and we don't understand the importance of night. We don't even understand the importance of summer and fall. All we know is that it's hot in the summer and it starts to get cold in the fall, right? You talk to somebody who farms, they will tell you the seasons are very different from each other. Right? Day and night are also very different from each other. Right? Nowadays, during the night, the lights are on, we think it's like day. Right? Allah tells us in the Quran, وَجَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ لِبَاسًا وَجَعَلْنَا النَّهَارَ مَعَاشًا. We have made the night a covering or a clothing, and we have made a day for you so that you may acquire your ma'ash. Your ma'ash is your livelihood. Day is a period of activity, night is a period of rest. Our bodies have to be in harmony with that. What does that mean? It means if you're going to be doing some gaming, don't do it first thing in the morning where your mind is fresh. Use it for something more purposeful. And don't do it late in the night, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. Because the night was not made for gaming, the night was made for resting. So one, let's value our time and spend it wisely. Number two, let's also develop a very healthy lifestyle. Sometimes when we get into a culture of gaming, we forget that we need to have a healthy lifestyle. One of the focuses of the fourth Imam in the Sahifa Sajadiyah is something called afiyah. Afiyah means well-being. Whenever the Ahlul Bayt you find talk about the well-being of the soul, they also talk about the well-being of the body as well. In this dua, the Imam says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَامْنُنْ عَلَيَّ بِالصِّحَّةِ وَالْأَمْنِ وَالسَّلَامَةِ. Oh Allah, favor me with sihha, with health, with well-being, and with security, and with peace, fi dini wa badani, in my religion, and also in my body as well. Having a healthy lifestyle is very important. And gaming should be a small part of that healthy lifestyle. Right? Today you look at all of these successful CEOs. When you look into their lives, they have a very strict regimen. They believe in having a very strict and healthy lifestyle. I'm going to give you the example of a CEO, not because I'm telling you that this person is a good role model for us. I'm just showing you that somebody who was successful in this world could not have been successful without a healthy lifestyle. Many of you have heard about Steve Jobs, right? CEO of Apple, took Apple from a time when it was nothing and made it into one of the largest, the biggest and most important tech companies, right? Steve Jobs was very strict about having a healthy lifestyle. He was very strict about the food that he ate. A lot of his food came from his garden. He believed in having food with his family. Even though he was very busy at work, in the evening he would always be at home. And he would sit down with his kids and he would have dinner with his kids. Okay? And you find that he didn't have a TV at home because he believed that the TV would stifle the creativity of his children. The very same person who told the world that Apple and iPads and smartphones were the best thing that anybody could have, it was going to revolutionize the world, is the same person who didn't allow his own kids to have a smartphone or an iPad until they became adults. Right? He believed in a healthy lifestyle. One of the things you'd have noticed about Steve Jobs is whenever he came for an interview or whenever he made a presentation, he always wore the same shirt. If you remember him, turtleneck, black in color. You see him in like 2004, you see him in 2010, turtleneck, black in color. Somebody asked him, why do you just wear the same shirt? He said, because I don't want to waste time picking clothes in the morning. Right? Very strict about what he wants to achieve. We want to be successful in this world, you've got to have a healthy lifestyle. In my trip to London this month of Muharram, I was walking to the masjid with a doctor. The doctor tells me when I was studying to become a doctor, I was also reading a book called Tib al-A'immah, the medicine of the Ahlul Bayt. And when I was reading that book, I saw the Imams were telling us that you should eat this, don't eat that, eat this in this way, don't eat that in that way. And I thought to myself, this medicine is old medicine, it's archaic medicine. Maybe it was advanced for the time of the Imam, but in terms of today's standards, this medicine is... He says, until I started working and dealing with patients, and then I realized the wisdom of the Ahlul Bayt. That the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam were telling us that many of the ailments of your body and the sicknesses of your body are a result of an unhealthy lifestyle. And so now whenever a patient comes into my office, I sit down with them, and even before prescribing medicine to them, I say, let's talk about your lifestyle. Are you eating well? Are you exercising? Are you spending time with family? Because a lot of your problems in the body come from your lifestyle. Let me ask you a question here. If we need to have a healthy lifestyle to be successful in this world, you need to have a healthy lifestyle to be able to have a healthy body. Don't you think we also need a healthy lifestyle to be successful in our spirituality and the akhirah as well? Yeah? You need it even more. Now, one of the things that I notice happens when we start taking gaming seriously is that our lifestyle stops being a healthy lifestyle. The food that we eat when you're gaming, you need something you can put your hand into, take it out. And we don't work out as much, we don't exercise as much, we don't go out into nature. We're not spending time doing our homework. We're not spending time in our ibadah, in our worship, which is a part of a healthy lifestyle. We don't have time to sit down and talk to family and to meet with people. Even when we sit down on the dinner table, I find we're very edgy, right? It's like, when can the food come? I want to eat as fast as I can because I need to get back to my game. And if we're told to do anything extra, like can you pick up the dishes? We get really upset. We get angry sometimes. Right? I even notice myself that sometimes when I go to visit certain families and the parents are insistent, the sheikh has come to the house today, come and sit in the living room. and talk to the Sheikh. You learn something from him. And the young fellow comes and sits over there, and I can see he's very edgy. Like the foot is bumping up and down. The hands are tapping, right? I know there's one question going on in his mind, and it's looping in his mind. And that question is, can I go now? Can I please go now? Because I want to get back to my game. Yeah. The second guideline that I'll give you about gaming is first work on your lifestyle. We all need to develop a very healthy lifestyle and then make gaming a small part of it. And don't allow it to affect your lifestyle. 3. And this one's really important. Make a distinction between virtual reality and the real world. These two are not the same. Okay? What happens in gaming does not happen in real life. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Say another salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I was speaking once to a psychologist just to show you that more and more we can't make a distinction between the gaming world and the real world. And this psychologist works in a community, say in North America. And he was called into a school because there was a young fellow at the school, was a bright young fellow, but he was going around hitting his classmates. And they couldn't tell why this young fellow who is so smart, who is so bright, who is so respectful would go around hitting his classmates. So he says, as I started to talk to this young fellow, I came to realize that he can't make the distinction between the virtual reality and the real world. When he plays these games online, he goes around hitting people, kicking people, hurting people, killing people. And he thinks, well, if I can do it there, I can also do it here. What's wrong with that? And he hasn't processed, because he's too young, that in that world it doesn't have real consequences. In this world it has real consequences. Now as we grow up, subconsciously you find we still take virtual reality into the real world. And we forget that these two are very different from each other. The same psychologist tells me that with a lot of the kids, we're finding that when they go online, they develop a lot of strength, a lot of power. They almost become godlike in some of these games that they play, right? They go and buy strength, they develop skill, they do what they want to do. If they want something, you can either buy it or you can kill somebody and get it from them, right? He says we're noticing that the same mentality, because when we go online, we've got a character online, we identify with that character. Then when we come in the real world, we start acting in the same way. We think of ourselves as small gods in this real world. And we bring with it defiance for authority. We bring with it a little bit of rebellion. We bring with it a little bit of arrogance as well. This psychologist says, in my opinion, some of this that we're seeing in some of our young brothers and sisters comes from the online world. One thing we need to remember is that the online world is very different from the real world. In the online world, things may be very easy. You want something, you got the money, you buy it. In the real world, sometimes you've got the money and you've got the skill and you still may not get it. You need to work hard. In the online world, you kill somebody, has no consequences. In the real world, you kill somebody, has consequences. Here's one that a lot of young brothers and sisters struggle with, right? In the online world, if you mess up, what's the worst that's going to happen? You hit replay, restart, Go back to the beginning. Right? And sometimes we go through life thinking the same way. If I mess up, there's a restart button. And when we mess up, then I hear some of our brothers or sisters saying, can I have one more chance? Can I have one more try at this? And we think there's a restart button to life. Sometimes there is no restart button to life. The Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam never wanted us to forget the reality of this world. You find even during that time, the Imam is reminding his companions that don't forget the reality of this world. The fourth Imam says to some of his companions, تَطْلُبُونَ الْمُسْتَحِيلِ, you're looking for something impossible. You know, mustahil is not improbable. Mustahil is impossible. The sun rising from the west is improbable. 1 + 1 = 3 is impossible, is never going to happen. Not in this world, not in the hereafter. They say to the Imam, وَكَيْفَ نَطْلُبُ الْمُسْتَحِيلِ, like, what are we doing that you say we're looking for something impossible? The Imam says, تَطْلُبُونَ الرَّاحَ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَمَا خُلِقَتِ الدُّنْيَا لِلرَّاحَةِ. You look for comfort and ease in this world. Know the reality of this world. This world was not created for comfort and ease. Now sometimes what I also notice happens is that when we have difficulties in life and we struggle to overcome them, we struggle to confront them, then we take recourse and refuge in the online world. We run away from our problems into the gaming world. Right? So for example, if we're struggling with our homework, we're struggling sometimes with our relationships with our parents, we're struggling sometimes with creativity, we're struggling sometimes with something that happened in our lives and we can't come to terms with it. Instead of dealing with it, instead of developing ourselves, instead of improving my character, having a conversation, fixing the relationship, I want to shut all of it out. And the easiest way to shut it all out is to do what? Is to go online. Because when I go online, it's very easy. I've developed my character. I've developed the skill, right? In the online world, the most difficult thing is developing the skill. Once you develop the skill, you're good. Right? So we go online and we close it. You know the way an addict, when he's going through a struggle in his life, he's going through stress in his life, and he wants to shut out all of those stresses, he goes and shoots up. In the same way, we also find recourse in the online world as well. The Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam never wanted us to run away from our problems in life. Deal with it. Overcome it. Confront it. Don't run away from it. Okay? I find the du'as of the fourth Holy Imam to be very eye-opening. Sometimes for many of us, du'as are a way of running away from struggle and effort. When you look at the du'a of the fourth Imam, he says, no, du'a is a way for you to confront your struggles, to overcome your challenges. Right? My eyes opened up to this approach when I was reading the du'a of the fourth Imam, when he talks about debt, about loan. If I and you had to make a du'a when we are in debt, we would turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, oh God, relieve me of my debt. Find somebody who can pay off my debt. Correct? When the fourth Imam made du'a when he was in debt, look at how he prays to God. He prays to God and he says, oh Allah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa alih wahjubni anis sarfi wal izdiyad, and block me from being extravagant and from spending too much. That's the reason why sometimes I am in debt. God, help me to overcome that challenge. Then he says, وَعَلِّمْنِي حُسْنَ التَّقْدِيرِ, and teach me how to spend my money. Because sometimes it's not that we don't have money, it's because we don't know how to spend that money. God, give me the ability to know how to do that. وَاقْبِضْنِي بِلُطْفِكَ عَنِ التَّبْذِيرِ, and hold me back, O God, from wasting and squandering what you have given me. Right? So, when we go online, one thing we have to keep in mind is that virtual reality is very different from the real world. And we should not run away from our problems in the real world by going into virtual reality. Deal with your problems. Otherwise, you'll become addicted to being online. The fourth one and the last one that I want to share with you, a guideline for when we go online, is that we have to choose our circle of friends very carefully. In Islam, we're very quick to make acquaintances, but we're very slow at making friends. Keep this in mind. You don't make somebody your friend until you know who they are. You know their character, you know their iman, you know their vision for life, and if that's a good vision, if that character is a good character, you make that person your friend, otherwise he remains your acquaintance. The Prophet of Allah says, Al-mar'u ala dini khalileh. A man lives according to the religion of his friend. فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَحَدُكُمْ مَنْ يُخَالِلْ. Then one of you should see whom is he taking to be his friend. The fourth Imam has a lengthy hadith. He says, so and so, don't take him to be your friend. So and so, don't take him to be your friend. So and so, don't take him to be your friend. Right? For example, the Imam says, إِيَّاكَ وَمُصَاحَبَةَ الْكَذَّابِ فَإِنَّهُ بِمَنْزِلَةِ السَّرَابِ يُقَرِّبُ لَكَ الْبَعِيدِ وَيُبَعِّدُ لَكَ الْقَرِيبِ. Don't make friends with a liar. Why? Because he's like a mirage. He'll make things which are far seem close and things which are close seem very far for you. Then the Imam says, and don't spend time with a fasiq, and don't spend time with a bakhil, a miserly person, and don't spend time with a foolish person, and don't spend time with that person who breaks relations from his family. So we want to be very careful about whom we talk to and whom we make to be our friends. Now, one thing I'm noticing is that when we go online, even in games which are for children, there's a chat function there, right? For example, kids like to play Roblox. Even Roblox has a chat function. You're going to something like Fortnite or Call of Duty or GTA. From what I hear, it's not just chat, but also voice, right? And first I'm going to address the parents who are here. That we're so careful when we send our children to school. Do they have proper security there? We're so careful when we send our children to the playground. Is somebody watching over them? We're extremely sensitive if a stranger comes and talks to our children. And we say, what does this stranger want from our children? Somebody should be watching over there, right? When we send our children to a particular place, we want to make sure everybody has done a criminal record check. Because if they haven't done a criminal record check, I'm not sending my child over there. And then I send my kids to the online world where he meets Mr. X, Y, and Z, everybody and anybody, and there are no guidelines put over there. Now, security concerns aside, the second concern that we also have is these people whom we meet online and we spend time with them and we don't know who they are. What influence are they having on us? How are they influencing our etiquette? How are they influencing our beliefs? How are they influencing our way of life? I was reading about it online, and one of the concerns that some of the parents raised is that when you're on these online games, so often there's an F-bomb here and an F-bomb there. And that's become very normal. Right? And then more than that, other things are said, other things are insinuated. The Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam told us, Musahaba is just spending time, sitting next to somebody. Be careful whom you choose to spend time with, because they are going to influence your spirituality. So the fourth guideline for going online is also look at whom you're playing with and how that's going to be influencing you. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let us take our hearts to Medina, to Jannatul Baqi, to the uncovered grave of Imam Sajad. And let us do tawassul to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. Ya Abul Hasan, Ya Ali ibn al-Husayn, Ya Zayn al-Abidin, Ya ibn Rasulillah, all together. Ya Hujjat Allahi ala khalqih, Ya Sayyidana wa Mawlana, Inna tawajjahna wastashfa'na wa tawassalna bika ila Allah وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا. One more time. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا. On the day of Ashura, Imam Sajad saw and heard what happened to the family of Imam al-Hussein. The next day he was taken in chains, tied around his neck, tied around his hands, the way captives and prisoners are taken. And he saw for himself with his own eyes the body of his father lying on the plains of Karbala. When he saw that, he was about to become unconscious. And Lady Zainab alayhi salam said to him, "O memory of my brother, what do I see happening to you?" And he said to her, "How can this not happen to me when I see my brother, and I see my uncles, and I see my father lying on the plains of Karbala? The body of Imam al-Hussein without a head, covered in blood, covered in the sand of Karbala, covered with so many injuries, stripped of clothing. How can this not be the state of Imam al-Sajjad?" And therefore on his way from Karbala to Kufa, and from Kufa then going to Sham, Imam al-Sajjad would recite the Masa'ib of Imam al-Hussein. He would remind people of the Masa'ib of Imam al-Hussein. They say when they finally entered the city of Medina after returning from Sham, after returning from Karbala, he said to Bashir, "O Bashir, go into the city of Medina and announce to them that the caravan of the Ahlul Bayt has come back to Medina." So Bashir went to Medina and he announced to them, "Ya Ahla Yathrib la muqama lakum biha. قتل الحسين فادمعي مدرارا." O people of Medina, Medina is no longer a place for you to say, "Hussein has been martyred and my tears are flowing." الجسم منه بكربلاء مضرج والرأس منه على القناة يدار. His body has been trampled in Karbala. It lies on the plains of Karbala. And as for his head, it is traveling from city to city on top of a spear. The people of Medina came out of the city of Medina. They gathered around Imam al-Sajjad. And Imam al-Sajjad started to tell them about the tragedy of Karbala. He said to them, "My father was slaughtered in Karbala. My father was killed thirsty in Karbala. My father was covered, murammalun bidima'ih, covered in his own blood in Karbala." And everybody was weeping and crying. But Imam al-Sajjad would then
recite the Masa'ib of Aba Abdullah, and of all the things to remember, he would remember the thirst of Imam al-Hussein. And whenever he would go in the bazaar of Medina and he would see a butcher, he would ask the butcher and say, "You're going to slaughter this animal. Tell me, have you given any water to this animal?" And the butcher would turn to the Imam and say, "Ya ibn Rasulullah, we always give water to the animals. This is the sunnah of the Holy Prophet. This is a humane thing for us to do. Who wouldn't give water to an animal before slaughtering him?" And Imam Sajad would say, "But my father, when he was in the plains of Karbala, they slaughtered him and they didn't give any water to him." The Imam was seen crying and weeping for Imam al-Hussein many years after the tragedy of Karbala. They say until the end of his life, for 35 to 40 years, Imam al-Sajjad would cry for Aba Abdullah. Somebody said to him, "Ya ibn Rasulillah, you have taught us yourself, Inna al-mawta lana aada wa karamatuna ash-shahada." Death is very normal for us, and it is our honor and dignity to have martyrdom in the way of Allah. Then Ya ibn Rasulillah, your father was martyred in the way of Allah, your brothers were martyred in the way of Allah, then why do you cry so much for them? And one of the answers Imam al-Sajjad would give, he would say to the person that dying in the way of Allah is an honor and dignity for us. But tell me, our women and children taken as captives from city to city, humiliated, their hijab taken away from them, is that an honor and a dignity for anybody? وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا آلَ مُحَمَّدٍ أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ